Welcome to The Explainer. Today, we're taking literally everything you thought you knew about money, tossing it right out the window, and replacing all those emotional, ingrained financial habits with pure, data-backed academic reality. We are going to start treating wealth building like an engineering problem. So, if you're ready to stop stressing and start actually structuring your financial life based on science rather than sales pitches, well, you are in exactly the right place. Let's get into it. Okay, let's dive into this, because we're starting off by challenging the absolute sacred cow of conventional financial wisdom. I mean, for generations, society has just hammered into us that renting is throwing money away and buying a house is the ultimate path to wealth, right? We've all heard it. But what if the math says the exact opposite? What if sinking your life savings into a property is actually the very thing holding you back? The research on this is incredibly clear. Renting versus owning a home is the single biggest financial decision most people make in their entire life. It dictates your mobility, your cash flow, and, let's be honest, your stress levels. So it is absolutely vital that we strip away all that societal pressure for a minute and just look objectively at the numbers.
So, here is our roadmap for today. First, unlearning traditional financial advice. Second, the rent versus buy myth. Third, setting true life goals. Fourth, avoiding major financial mistakes. And finally, number 5, the ultimate investing strategy.
Section 1, unlearning traditional financial advice, moving from sales to science. Look, we have to fundamentally shift our perspective on how we consume financial information. The traditional financial services industry, it often operates a lot like a car dealership. They're frequently just trying to sell you products. High-fee funds, complex insurance policies, or whatever the hot new trend is, whether you actually need them or not. Academic reality, on the other hand, treats wealth building like engineering. It relies on decades of peer-reviewed data and literature. When you rely on academic research, you entirely bypass the salespeople who, frankly, might not have your best interests at heart. Instead, you're relying on very smart people who have rigorously tested what actually works in the real world. Section 2, the rent versus buy myth, the math of homeownership. To really understand the raw math of real estate, we've got to grasp this one foundational definition: unrecoverable costs. Simply put, this is money paid for housing that you will just never, ever get back. When you rent, your monthly rent payment is an unrecoverable cost. That's obvious. But there's this massive illusion out there that when you own a home, every single dollar you spend is magically saved in your home equity. And guys, that is simply not true. Homeowners face massive unrecoverable costs too. So the crucial point here is understanding exactly what these costs are for a homeowner. First up, mortgage interest. That's money paid directly to the bank that just vanishes forever. Second, property taxes, which usually run somewhere between 0.5% and 1% of the home's value. Third, maintenance costs. Now, this is the one people underestimate the absolute most. The academic literature and, honestly, painful homeowner experience shows this can easily exceed 2% of the property's value every single year. A broken pool pump here, a cracked foundation there, it adds up incredibly fast. And finally, the most invisible drain of all, the opportunity cost of equity. The cash you trapped in your home's down payment is money that isn't compounding and growing for you in the stock market. Now, the research gives us a really brilliant, simple calculation called the 5% rule. Here's how it works. If you take the purchase price of a home, multiply it by 5%, and divide by 12, you get the break-even monthly rent. Let's do the math. If you're looking at a $300,000 home, 5% of that is $15,000. Divide that by 12, and you get $1,250. That means owning that $300,000 home effectively costs you $1,250 a month in unrecoverable out-the-window expenses, meaning if you can rent a similar place for less than $1,250, renting is actually the mathematically superior financial decision. Mind-blowing, right? Section 3, setting true life goals. The psychology of wealth. Building wealth is completely useless if it doesn't fund a flourishing life. To figure out what actually matters to us, we use a scientifically backed framework. Step 1, you just list your initial goals: buying a house, retiring at 50, whatever comes to mind first. Step 2, force yourself to double that list. Research shows this forces much deeper thinking and elicits goals that end up being deeply meaningful to you over the long haul. And then step 3 is to filter all these goals using what's called the PERMA model. The PERMA model comes straight from positive psychology, and it outlines the 5 buckets of human flourishing: positive emotion, engagement, relationships, meaning, and accomplishment. If a financial goal doesn't fit into at least one of these buckets, you might be wasting years of your life saving for it. Take buying a Ferrari, for example. If you just want it to look rich, that thrill is going to fade in a week. It's the classic hedonic treadmill. But if you want to race it on a track every weekend to get into a state of deep engagement, or you want to connect with a community of enthusiasts to build relationships, well then suddenly it might actually contribute to a good life. Categorize your goals to avoid overspending on things that don't bring true fulfillment.
Section 4, avoiding major financial mistakes, the traps to watch out for.
So once you have your goals aligned, we need to clear out the invisible roadblocks. I want you to imagine making a simple $10,000 purchase today. Maybe it's a small car, a massive vacation, or a luxury watch. Because of a concept called opportunity cost, the true price tag of that item is completely hidden from you. Let me show you what I mean. If you instead took that $10,000 and invested it in the stock market at just a modest 7% return over 40 years, it would grow to $150,000. Because of compound interest, that $10,000 car actually costs you $150,000 in future wealth. The exact same math applies to a $10 daily coffee habit. You really have to ask yourself, does this purchase bring me enough joy today to justify what it's costing my future self?
Another massive pitfall comes down to who you choose to partner with in life. Academic research categorizes people into two main spending profiles. You've got the tightwad, who feels actual emotional pain when spending money, and then you have the spendthrift, who feels a rush of excitement and absolutely no pain at all when spending. So which one are you? Interestingly, research shows that opposites attract. A tightwad is actually highly likely to marry a spendthrift. But here's the catch. Marrying the opposite profile is one of the leading causes of deep financial conflict and marital dissatisfaction. You have to communicate and align your wealth psychology with your partner. Here are a few more major wealth-killing traps you need to watch out for. First, not investing in your human capital, meaning your skills and education, severely limits your earning power. Taking the wrong risks, like gambling on crypto or chasing trendy thematic ETFs, will destroy wealth. And hoarding cash under the mattress? Wow, that is a silent killer. Because of an average 3% inflation rate, keeping your cash uninvested effectively cuts your purchasing power in half over a 20-year period. You also just can't afford to miss out on simple tax planning or underinsuring against catastrophic risks like disability or death. These are the basics, but they are absolutely crucial.
Section 5, the ultimate investing strategy, keeping it simple.
So how do we invest to actually win? Well, there is a massive divide between what Wall Street wants you to do and what you should actually do. Wall Street loves to sell you thematic ETFs and individual stocks. They create these high-fee products around hot trends like AI or clean energy, right when prices are at their absolute peak, just to sell them to you right before they underperform. On the flip side, the mathematically optimal choice is boring, low-cost index funds. They charge almost nothing and simply capture the broad, long-term returns of the entire market. It turns out the boring strategy consistently wins. Let's look at how to build that portfolio based on a highly controversial yet fascinating academic paper. This study actually simulated over 1 million hypothetical lifetimes and found that an optimal retirement portfolio might actually be 100% equities, split roughly as 33% domestic stocks and 67% international stocks. Now, this is controversial because conventional wisdom says you need safe bonds as you get older. But the data showed that during periods of high inflation, bonds can get absolutely decimated. A globally diversified stock portfolio actually proved safer over the long run by protecting your purchasing power. And once you set up that simple index fund portfolio, what do? Absolutely nothing. The absolute best strategy is to set it up and literally forget your password. As the research explicitly notes, the more people look at their investments, the less risk they take and the lower returns they earn. Our brains are built for primitive survival, not for watching abstract financial markets bounce up and down every single day. Checking your portfolio causes stress, it makes the market feel way riskier than it actually is, and it leads to terrible, emotionally driven decisions. Just let it ride. Which leaves us with this final thought to carry with you today. Are you investing to build the life you actually want, or the one society told you to buy? By applying the PERMA model to your goals, recognizing the massive unrecoverable costs in homeownership, and utilizing the objective math of low-cost index funds, you can totally reclaim control. Remember, knowledge is power. Run the numbers, automate your investments, and go build a life of true flourishing. Thanks so much for joining me on this explainer, and I'll see you next time.